Welcome in. This is another edition of In the Bonus. My name is Jorie Mickens, and I think you already know what I'm going to be talking about today. You saw the headline. You saw the thumbnail. Russell Westbrook breaking the all-time triple-double record. We'll get into that. We'll get into Russell Westbrook, what this means for him, for the game, for the entire league. But before we do that, I think it would probably be best to break down the game. And for those that don't know, this was a game between the Washington Wizards and the Atlanta Hawks, a game that the Wizards lost by 1 point, 125-124 in Atlanta. Trae Young leading the Hawks with 36 points, 6 rebounds, and 9 assists. John Collins had 28 points himself. I don't even want to mention Russell Westbrook's stat line yet. I'm going to do that, I think, all kind of on the second half of this episode because I do want to focus in on the Hawks for a little bit before I ramble on for Russell Westbrook for what could be 20 minutes. Who knows how long I'm going to be talking about him. But, so unfortunately, I would have loved to see the Wizards come out with a win. It would have been a great cap to this night. It would have made this game even more historic. But unfortunately, Washington fell to Atlanta, as I mentioned, 125-124. And it was a pretty back and forth game throughout the entire game, honestly. I mean, Washington was leading by 1 point, I believe, at halftime. I think they were leading 62-61. And then in the third quarter, I believe, the Hawks, they just went on a big run. And they got out to a pretty big lead in that third quarter. I think at one point leading by 15 was the most. I could be wrong. I have to fact check that. But I believe it was something like 15 points near the end of the third quarter. And the Wizards just never gave up. And I think it's good to mention as well, the Wizards, they didn't have Bradley Beal tonight. Bradley Beal was out with a hamstring injury, and he's going to miss. He missed this game, and he's expected to miss next game as well. So hopefully he gets back soon before the end of the regular season for Washington. But yeah, I mean, Washington, they were competing throughout this game. They didn't, hold their head down when they went down big at near the end of that third quarter. They fought back, and they brought it to within 1 point, 3 points multiple times during that fourth quarter. They just could not get the lead back, really. Well, they did get the lead back, I believe, at 1 point in that fourth quarter, following on some Westbrook free throws, but they just could not maintain a lead, and Atlanta's offense just continued to go right at Washington's defense all game. But yeah, down the stretch, Rui Hachimura, first of all, I'll say this. Washington was leading by 1 point at halftime, as I mentioned, and the Wizards had won, entering this game, 14 straight games when they were leading at the half. So that streak is now over, unfortunately, for Washington. But you got to give it to Atlanta. They played a really good game all throughout. They executed down the stretch, even though they kind of blew a pretty big lead in that fourth quarter. But down the stretch, it was really, really entertaining. Rui Hachimura, as I was about to say, he played well. Before I say this, he played pretty well in this game. He had 20 points, 9 for 19 shooting, so pretty efficient for him, I would say. I like his game a little bit. I think I for whatever reason, I always viewed him more as like a small forward. I know those positions are weird, and that's probably another topic I'll talk about once we get to Russell Westbrook and this crazy feat that he accomplished tonight. But I kind of always viewed Hachimura more as like a small forward, like shooting guard. Like if if that was to be his second position or secondary position, I guess, shooting guard. But he's more of a power forward. Like, he plays a lot like a power forward. He sets a lot of good screens for Westbrook. He's knocking down mid-range jumpers. Good finisher, I think, at the rim. So he definitely plays more of like a power forward. So I'm excited to see, what he can do in the future, what his potential is as he continues to grow as a player. But he missed a late game corner three on a really nice dime from Westbrook near the end of the game that would have given Washington a 2-point lead with about 1:30 remaining in the game. And then on the ensuing possession, I'm pretty sure the Wizards got a stop on defense. And then on the ensuing Washington possession, he traveled after another good pass from Westbrook. That travel call seems to get called a lot in today's NBA, where you kind of catch the ball, but you're already moving. Yeah, so he got called for one of those late in the game. But he did have a nice transition dunk to bring them within 1 point, under a minute remaining in the game. So that was kind of capped off his night in the scoring column. But it was all Russell Westbrook down the stretch and down the final minute of this game for Washington. He hit a really tough, floater mid-range. I don't even know really what you could describe it as, a push shot, whatever you want to call it, over Kevin Huerter. I don't know why I'm saying it like that. He probably got fouled too. I mean, he was complaining to the refs. I think it was a foul. He kind of pushed Westbrook when he was in the air, and he still knocked it down. A really tough shot. If you can see it, I would certainly try and look it up. It was a pretty crazy shot that he made to bring them, I believe, within 1 point. And then on the final possession, the Wizards got a stop. They got a steal, I believe. I can't remember who it was that turned the ball over for the Hawks, but they got a steal. And you could see all the coaches on the Washington sideline. They were saying, push the ball, let's go, get in transition, because we're not going to call a timeout. There was only 7 seconds remaining, I believe. And Russ pulled up for three. It was kind of a good look. It wasn't really contested. Bogdanovich was the one that pretty much contested it for the Hawks, but it clanked off the front of the rim, or the side of the rim, really, and that was it. That was the game. And unfortunately, again, it would have made for a crazy ending to this night, a crazy ending to this game for Westbrook. But that being said, Westbrook still had a phenomenal performance in this one. 28 points, 13 rebounds, 21 assists in this game for Russell Westbrook. I mean, it's literally insane. And I have some more stats I'll just read these. So entering this game, Russell Westbrook, he had triple doubles in 4 straight games, 7 triple doubles in his last 8. So this is entering this game, by the way. So again, you would have to add at least 1 triple double in 1 game to all these stats. So 7 of his last 8, 21 of his last 25, which is the most in NBA history, and 25 triple-doubles of his last 34 games, which this is essentially since the All-Star break. I mean, and they were saying on the broadcast, like, this was the first season, I believe, since 2013 that Russell Westbrook didn't make an All-Star team. And they were saying, yeah, he's really just clearly has come out a different man, a different animal, a different beast in the second half of this season. And he's just been absolutely insane during this stretch for the Wizards. And the Wizards, as a team, they've played a lot better, obviously. Creeping up the Eastern Conference standings. At one point in the first half of the year, it looked like they were headed for the lottery. Now it seems like they're going to try and win a play-in tournament in the Eastern Conference. And I think they actually have a pretty good shot if they can get Bradley Beal back, of course. But again, Russell Westbrook, 182 triple-doubles, career triple-doubles, the most in NBA history. He did it in 940 games, which is 100 less games than Oscar Robertson, who's in second place now, who was the all-time leader, for 47 years. A lot of people thought this record was never going to get broken. The closest active player outside of Russell Westbrook, who is now the leader, of course, is LeBron with 99. And LeBron has played 1,308 games. So, I mean, it's literally insane what Russell Westbrook has accomplished. And it's funny, I saw this statistic on Twitter as well. They were looking at the average pace. Everyone likes to say, oh, the NBA is so different than it was, 60 years ago when Oscar Robert was playing, or, 50 years ago when Oscar Robertson was playing. And that's fair. They said back then the average pace from 1961 to 1974, so I'm assuming that was the years Oscar Robertson was playing, during his playing career. The average pace was 107.8. The average pace from 2009 to this year, 2021, is 95.1. So that means Oscar Robertson's teams had 12.7 more possessions per game than Russell Westbrook's teams have. And it's not entirely accurate, because I think, at least this season, I know the Wizards play at the fastest pace in the NBA. They actually play at a pace of 104.1, so it's actually a lot closer to the pace that they played back in like the early 60s, 70s. And that's, when Russell Westbrook is your top player, your star player, that makes sense. You probably want to play at a faster pace. That's just how he caters to his game, I think, better. But still, what he has accomplished is absolutely insane. It doesn't make sense. It really just does not make sense what he's doing in right now. I saw another tweet, or another statistic, I guess, on Twitter, and it was Russell Westbrook's stats from the last 5 games. I think this will be the last thing I'll say about Russell Westbrook, before I kind of get into the Hawks a little bit. Russell Westbrook's stats from the last 5 games: 23.4 points, 16.4 rebounds, and 18.8 assists per game. He has 82 rebounds and 94 assists in that span as a 6'3" point guard. What? Those, for someone who played NBA 2K throughout his entire career, I don't think I've ever had a my player or any kind of player that could put up numbers like that. That just doesn't even make sense. It just doesn't make sense. He's nearly averaging 20 assists a game over his last 5. And everyone loves to say, oh, he's a stats pad or whatever, but and I actually think I actually think the way that argument is, or the counter argument is, oh, well, he actually is winning games. And that's true. But I feel like a more accurate way to look at it is, how does it impact how he plays in the game? It's not necessarily about winning games or losing games. It's, is he making the right basketball plays when he actually does? And I think you can definitely say he is. He's aggressively getting to the rim. He's getting his teammates open looks and rebounding. He's on the sideline. So the Hawks are a really good offensive rebounding team because they have Clint Capela, one of the best offensive rebounders in the NBA. And you could see him on the sideline when he was not in the game, telling his teammates, you got to box out. And he's showing them how to box out, how to grab rebounds and things like that. You can't say that he's just doing this for show or to get records or things like that. He's doing it to win. He's doing it because he has to do it. It's that simple. So, hats off to Russell Westbrook. I feel like he's always gotten a little bit too much hate. Ever since Kevin Durant left him in Oklahoma City, I think he's been disrespected as a player. He hasn't won that much in the playoffs especially, but what he's doing, it's stupid to diminish his value as a player just because he can't carry a team by himself in a league where there's teams with multiple Hall of Famers on it. It's just it never made sense to me. Like, I don't know why we always do that. Why can't we just appreciate what he's doing? Because when he retires, in however many years when he retires, we're gonna look back and be like, this was the most unique player potentially of all time. I mean, how many 6'3" point guards can do this? How many players can do this? Period. Not just 6'3" point guards, but players. Literally, this is an unprecedented run that we are seeing from Russell Westbrook. An absolutely historic run from, again, in my opinion, probably the most unique player I think the NBA has ever seen. You know, you could say someone like Wilt Chamberlain, or in today's league, someone like Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo or LeBron James or Magic Johnson, whoever you want to say, you know, freakishly tall athletes that could pass, dribble, shoot, whatever it is. But Russell Westbrook, I mean, there's just players that there's nothing like him. His combination of athleticism, of aggression, and he 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 just does it all, man. There's only so much you can say. You got to respect it, man. It's literally incredible what he's been able to accomplish throughout his entire career, and especially this season. But I think that's a good place to kind of transition now over to the Atlanta Hawks, because I do want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks a little bit. I actually have a good amount of notes on the Atlanta Hawks, what I took away from this game. So the Hawks. Well, first off, I did mention that Bradley Beal was out for this game. The Hawks actually got a player back in the rotation, that being DeAndre Hunter, who missed the last 24 games for Atlanta with a knee injury. He returned, and let me check the box score really quick. He played 14 minutes off the bench, so he's getting acclimated back into the lineup during the last week of the NBA's regular season. So it'll be a good addition because he's a very valuable player for them. He's really good, I think, defensively. I think that's where he makes a really big impact. But, I mean, before the injury, he was playing really well, having a career year. A lot of people were kind of surprised when he was drafted, I believe, 4th overall in the 2018 draft, I believe it was. So, but he's been pretty solid, I think, this season. He's definitely grown on me as a as a fan and of the NBA. I think he's definitely taken a leap, and it's certainly good for the Hawks. But yeah, so they got him back. But at the beginning of the broadcast, they mentioned that entering this game, the Hawks were 23-11 since head coach Nate McMillan took over for Lloyd Pierce, who was fired back in March, I believe. 23-11. And now they're 24-11 under head coach Nate McMillan. And I think that's, well, I guess I'll mention a statistic about that later. I'll about their record, their winning percentage, and things like that, and how one player in particular I think is really helped them in that department, how he's grown as a player. But one player I want to mention, Clint Capela, who I mentioned a little bit earlier on the offensive rebounding aspect. I think Clint Capela has been one of the best additions by any team this season. When they traded for him from the Houston Rockets, a lot of people were expecting he wasn't even going to be there for very long. And then they drafted Onyeka Okongwu this year with the 6th overall pick or 7th overall pick. I don't know exactly what his draft spot was. So a lot of people were expecting, I don't know if Clint Capela is going to be their starting center, if he's going to even be around. Who knows? But he's been phenomenal, in my opinion, for this team. And in this game, he had 10 points, 22 rebounds, and 4 blocks. That's the numbers don't lie. But So there was a possession actually. Robin Lopez, who, it's everyone's probably thinking, Robin Lopez, what are you talking about? But actually, there was a statistic on the broadcast that said Robin Lopez, who he leads the NBA in hook shot percentage. Hook shots, which is a thing of the past seemingly. Um, so he shoots about 65%, or he converts about 65% of his hook shots, which is pretty crazy. Um, but he got one of them blocked by Clint Capela. One of his four blocks was on one of those Robin Lopez hook shots. And the Wizards broadcasters were saying that was only the third time this season that Lopez had his hook shot blocked. And that's pretty crazy to think that we're in the last week of the NBA season, and that was only the third time that's happened. And of course, it was Clint Capela that got one of them. But just, I mean, I think you can look at the numbers too. Their defensive rating, Atlanta's defensive rating, they have a defensive rating of 110.6 when Clint Capela is on the floor, which would rank sixth in the NBA. And the Hawks' defensive rating without Clint Capela is 117.6, which would be the second worst defensive rating in the NBA. So it's a very big turnaround when he's on the floor and when he's not. And you could certainly see the difference when you're watching the game. Like, a lot of teams are very weary of where he is at all times. They don't want to attack the rim when he's patrolling the paint. There was actually a moment in this game, I believe it was in the first quarter, where Russell Westbrook had Bogdanovich on an island in isolation, and he was saying, he was shouting out to the referees, 3 seconds, 3 seconds, because he thought Clint Capela was just standing in the paint for more than 3 seconds. Obviously, that would have been a defensive 3 seconds. We got a free throw, yada, yada. You know how it works. But he was upset because he was thinking like, oh, he's in the paint, but he actually wasn't. He was just his presence is, I guess, so big, and he was just afraid to attack the rim. And that's Russell Westbrook, who I was just praising for being one of the most aggressive players, especially guards, in the league. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, just teams do not want to go to the rim against Clint Capela. And it's pretty crazy to see his impact and the impact that he makes on this team. And then offensively, I mean, he's a pretty good fit too. He doesn't take a lot of shots. You know, this team on offense, they have plenty of shot makers. They have Trae Young, obviously, John Collins, who had a really good game as well. 28 points for John Collins. I think I mentioned that at the top of this show. And then Bogdanovich as well. Trae Young, he takes 17.7 shots a game. Bogdanovich, 12.7. John Collins, 12.4. So they have players that are going to take shots. They don't necessarily need Capela to, they don't need him to be that low post offense where they can just throw it down to him and he'll get a bucket every time. He's really more of just a lob threat and someone that's going to get, like I mentioned earlier, offensive rebounds and score on second chance points. I believe he's fourth in the NBA in second chance points, and he has the ninth highest field goal percentage in the NBA this season. So Clint Capela, again, I mean, he's just been really, really good for Atlanta this season, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs regardless of who they play, I think. I think at the moment it's gearing towards or looking like it's going to be a Knicks-Hawks first-round series, which is the series that I really want to see because I think that'll be really fun given that it's two young teams with two veteran coaches really that have some playoff experience that have, been in those playoff moments. I think it'll be a really good series, and it'll be, a little bit of defense versus offense too. And we might get the old adage, oh, defense wins championships, so it might be in the Knicks' favor, but who knows? I think it'll be a really interesting battle between those two teams. But the one player, obviously, that I wanted to mention, and this is probably super obvious. But I think Trae Young has actually improved as a player a lot this season. And I think it's dangerous to look at averages and numbers and try and determine the impact or even the progression of a player, because you would see, oh, his shot attempts are down, his points are down. And you look at that and you're like, oh, well, Trae Young's having a down year. That's probably why he didn't make the All-Star team. But he's I think he's just his shot selection has gotten a lot better, I think. Throughout most of the game, I would have say his shot selection was really good. There was a point in the game where he was shooting like 7 of 12 from the field, and then during the fourth quarter, he kind of just took over and started doing hero ball, which was, it got the job done. They won the game. He had 36 points, but there were some ill-advised shots in that span, and but at the same time, like he seems like he's always been a willing passer, and he's always been a very gifted passer, a very accurate facilitator. But I feel like this season, more than his last two seasons, he's really made some strides offensively to get his teammates involved and not just settle for 30-foot three-pointers every time down the floor. Like, I think everyone in the league knows that he can score with basically anyone in the NBA. But I think now you see he's taking less shots. He's trying to get his teammates more involved. We haven't heard anything. We heard earlier in the season there was issues apparently with him and John Collins about how Trae Young runs the offense. And I think Trae Young we haven't heard anything since, and they're winning. So, maybe it's just a matter of Nate McMillan telling those two, this is how you guys need to play, or maybe it's just who knows? They figured something out clearly, but I liked what I saw from Trae Young a lot. He wasn't really doing anything, again, ill-advised or anything stupid, to say the least, or to put it like that. But I was going to mention their record. So, like I said, entering this game, they were 23-11 since McMillan took over as head coach. Now, obviously, with the win tonight, they moved to 24-11. So Atlanta in Trae Young's first two seasons, his rookie season and last year, they had won only 49 games in his first two seasons combined. If they had played at this pace or this winning percentage under Nate McMillan throughout the entire season, this would have been a winning percentage of .686. They would have finished this season 49-23. So they would have basically matched exactly what he achieved in his first two seasons combined in the win column in one season. That speaks so much to how much he's improved. Obviously, the roster around him has gotten a lot better. Like I just mentioned, Clint Capela, Gallinari off the bench, Lou Will. Lou Will didn't make much of an impact in this game, but his team has certainly gotten better, but I feel like Trae Young should actually deserve some praise for the strides he's made as a player, as an individual as well, because I think the Hawks, they look a lot better. They look a lot better. Defensively, they're a little shaky. I think, especially without Clint Capela, when he ever goes to the bench, they're a little shaky. They did give up 124 points. Again, that is the Wizards, though, who, like I said, play at a really, really fast pace. But overall, I liked what I saw from the Hawks, and I think moving forward and going into the playoffs, I'm going to be very excited to watch this team and see Trae Young and this young team get their playoff lumps. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited. And then for the play-in tournament, just on the Wizards side, this was a crucial game for them. They really needed to win this game. I was kind of hoping they won because I wanted to see them get the 8th seed and, try and, jump the Hornets, who are right now in the 8th seed, because the Nets are actually the 2 seed right now, 3 games back of the first seeded Sixers. And I was thinking maybe the Wizards get in that 7-8 playing game, win, they get the 7th seed, and then we would have a Brooklyn-Washington first-round series, which would be very entertaining because that would be Russell Westbrook versus Kevin Durant and James Harden. I mean, I think that would be so much fun to watch. I think it would probably, I think Brooklyn would certainly handle business in that series, but it would be very entertaining to see those 3 former teammates go at it in the playoffs. That would be very fun, especially in the first round. But I think Washington, if they can get Bradley Beal back, hopefully that hamstring heals up before the play-in tournament. If they get him back, I think Washington is going to be a very, very scary play-in team. I mean, they only have to win. If they are the 9 seed, they'll have to win 2 games. But I think Russell Westbrook, he's going to be more motivated than I can imagine anyone in that play-in tournament of those teams. I mean, earlier today I saw Jaylen Brown for the Celtics, who are in the 7th seed right now. He's going to be out for the season. So that's a big blow to the Celtics. And, right now the Celtics are 2 games ahead of the Hornets in 8th. So it's going to be tough for them to slide. But who knows? If the Celtics lose in that 7-8 game and Washington can take care of business in their 9-10 game, I think the Wizards could seriously make the playoffs this year, and I think that would be great for Russell Westbrook and that team. I would really like to see them in the playoffs this year. That would be a lot of fun. But that's really all the notes that I have. Again, congratulations, Russell Westbrook. It literally incredible. You deserve all the praise, all the respect. Continue to be yourself, man. I mean, you're an incredible person. Love everything you do on the court, off the court. Yeah, just keep doing you, man. Keep doing you, Brody. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode of In the Bonus. Again, the Atlanta Hawks taking down the Washington Wizards 125-124. My name is Jorie Mickens. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of In the Bonus, and we will see you next time.